He appeared to just be an eccentric, if odd, man, but after the breakup, Iultin claimed that she had always been a part of the conspiracy, insisting he carry his phone everywhere, and according to him, triggering the dryness and pain in his eyes during their time together. Still, it seems more likely that loneliness and heartbreak pushed Clement across the thin line between sanity and madness, a line he never came back from. Sometimes loneliness is a choice. It often affects the very young and the very old. One of the latter was Valentina Abramova, born in 1927 in the Soviet Union. At some point in her life, she moved to the small Russian town of Shukino. Neighbors described her as reclusive and quiet, doing everything she could to avoid contact. And yet, from time to time, people heard her play the accordion with great skill. But in 1995, when Valentina was 68 years old, the music suddenly stopped. From then on, no one saw her again. Residents assumed that perhaps a nephew or some relative had taken her away. To them, she had always seemed a little strange anyway, a solitary woman pulling her green accordion on a sled in winter, while other parents pulled their children. For over a decade, no one thought much about her disappearance. They had no idea that something horrific was hidden right next door. 2008, Valentina's apartment, number 7, was finally scheduled to be opened and reassigned. A housing worker and local police officer came with the spare key, but it wouldn't turn. The door was locked from the inside. The officer forced it open, and as the door swung wide, they were hit with a stench so foul it made them gag. The apartment was a nightmare. The ceiling, walls, and furniture were covered in thick webs crawling with spiders. The only furniture left was a small bed, chair, table, and cabinet, all decayed with time. On the walls were pictures of animals, sheets of music, and postcards of children's handwriting. And then on the bed, they saw her. The housing worker ran outside, panicked. The officer called an investigator. What they found was a mummified corpse, Valentina herself lying on her back, dressed in decaying nightclothes. Her skin was dried and yellow-brown. Her hair and limbs stuck to the bed. When they tried to move her, parts of the skin and hair tore away. Beside her body was a cup, a blue pencil, a notebook of songs, and old newspapers. Nearby lay her green Weltmeister accordion and a suitcase of a stack of money, which investigators believe she had been saving for her own funeral. The conclusion, Valentina had likely died back in 1995. Her body left undiscovered for 13 years. All that time, while neighbors cooked meals, raised children, and celebrated holidays, the corpse of a forgotten woman was silently mummifying just beyond the walls. Her story became the subject of a documentary by filmmaker Valery Ostapnik, In Search of Valentina. It remains a chilling reminder that even when someone chooses to live alone, their fate is still, in some way, a responsibility of those around them. No matter how the previous story ended, Valentina at least lived to an old age. But not everyone is that fortunate. Sometimes tragedy strikes so early that a life ends before it has truly begun. And sometimes a story becomes so heavy that its protagonists decide to end it themselves. In those moments, support is crucial. Loving parents, friends, even pets can make the difference. But what if your surroundings don't protect you? Between 2013 and 2014, a series of strange groups appeared on the Russian social network VK. They had names like Wake Me Up at 420 and Quiet House. Their primary audience was teenagers with depressive thoughts and tendencies. The administrators of these groups often called themselves the curators. It's worth noting that VK had all the tools to moderate its content, but back then, no one paid much attention. Today, VK is one of the largest media conglomerates in Russia. Tightly controlled, heavily moderated, and politically influential. Its current owner is a billionaire and one of the most powerful figures in the post-Soviet world. But at the time, VK still belonged to its founder. It was far more of a niche, freewheeling platform. All kinds of edgy content thrived there, and because there was so little moderation, Quiet House and Wake Me Up at 420 grew unchecked, and eventually led to outcomes that could never be undone. Structurally, these groups function like cults, very much like the exploitive communities you can still find on Discord. Sadists and misanthropes acting as curators sought out vulnerable teenagers and other depressive forms, gained their trust, and invited them into their closed groups. Once inside, they manipulated the victims, turning them against their parents and friends, and isolating them from any possible support network. The groups were filled with bleak imagery, whales, ocean motifs, endless posts glorifying death, and that's how the name Blue Whale was born. After prolonged manipulation came the test of loyalty. Self-harm was mandatory. Tasks included humiliation, destroying their social reputation. If a teen refused, the curators resorted to threats, promising to harm their loved ones if they didn't comply. One infamous requirement was to carve the shape of a blue whale into one's arm, and of course the final assignment was exactly what you're already imagining. By 2015, journalists and investigators began noticing disturbing patterns in what otherwise looked like ordinary teen suicides, whale drawings on phones, references to 420, and strange behaviors among the victims. The turning point came when one of Russia's major newspapers published an explosive article titled The Death Groups. It reported over 130 cases and described mysterious, sadistic curators preying on children. The story caused a media firestorm. Other outlets reported it, and television stations began broadcasting nightly segments on the so-called death groups. Across Russia, a wave of panic swept through. Parents, schools, and authorities launched a witch hunt for curators. Fear spread like wildfire. Teenagers were accused of being part of a game simply for posting whale drawings. Small, obscure communities run by a handful of abusers were reinterpreted as a massive youth movement spreading self-harm like a trend. Politicians seized the moment. The hysteria gave them an excuse to clamp down on what was left of Russia's free internet, and the result of that can still be seen today. By 2017, some curators were arrested, Parliament passed a law banning the promotion of suicide, and most of the groups were wiped off the platform. The blue whale became a nationwide symbol of a supposed suicide movement. But the truth is, the movement as the media described it never really existed.
Парки чаи распускаются розы, парки чаи расцветает миндаль. Снятся твои золотистые косы, снится веселая звонкая даль.
Our next story isn't about a single person, but the tragic fate of an entire settlement in the far east of Russia. This part of the country is rich in tundra landscapes, where winter temperatures can drop to -40 degrees Celsius. The settlement of Iultin was founded after geologists discovered deposits of polymetallic ores in 1937.
Северный ветер поет за окном.
Life was harsh from the beginning, and the outbreak of the Second World War made things far worse. As the Soviet Union diverted resources to the front lines, the young settlement was forgotten. Famine struck. With no food supplies, residents were forced to survive on moss and frozen fish. Eventually, conditions became so unbearable that the local administration telegraphed to Moscow, not so much asking, but begging for emergency aid to prevent the complete extinction of the town. That could have been the end of Iultin's story. But as one war ended, another began, the Cold War. Suddenly, those same ore deposits became strategically valuable. In 1946, the government shipped in thousands of prisoners from labor camps, guarded by soldiers. The influx of forced labor gave Iultin a second life. A new 200-kilometer road was built, and for a time, the town thrived. It could have been a triumphant story, how a remote settlement endured tragedy and emerged stronger. But unfortunately, my video is about something else entirely. The collapse of the Soviet Union struck hard at communities across the former republics. Organized crime skyrocketed, the economy collapsed, inflation spiraled, and political instability spread. Moscow no longer thought about supporting small, isolated towns. Iultin was once again abandoned. The mines became unprofitable, and the costs of transporting an ore across the tundra were too high. Hunger returned, just like in the wartime years, but now without any hope of rescue from the center. Some tried to flee, but even after trekking 200 kilometers through the frozen tundra, they only reached cities already crushed by the same crisis. Places where there was no room, no jobs, and no shelter. Many ended up homeless, begging in the streets. Crime rose inside Iultin itself. Looters set fire to empty homes and cars, hoping to terrify the remaining residents into leaving so they could seize the abandoned property. And yet, despite the hunger, the cold, and the threats, some refused to leave. The footage you saw earlier was uploaded to YouTube under the title 4242. Beneath a thick layer of frost lies a bundle. As he unwraps it, frozen remains of two people emerge. The video's brief caption reads simply, "This is how Iultin died." Today, Iultin is a ghost town. Abandoned homes, rusted cars left stranded in the snow, schools and kindergartens where time has stopped. A place where silence could tell far darker stories than any legend.
Iultin. Был когда-то большой горняцкий поселок. А нынче все население составляет 2 дорожника, которые вот здесь живут. Гараж, треска у них работает, потому что электричество сюда уже давно не идет. Вон видно перевал, по которому мы сюда спускались. Не знаю, слабенькая камера. В общем, он там.
These were just 5 stories out of hundreds of chilling tales from the Russian internet. I'm planning to release more videos on this subject, so if you enjoyed this one, please subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of this grim dive into the underbelly of Runet. Also, if you'd like to support me, leave a like and a comment. It really helps push the video forward, and for a small YouTuber like myself, that kind of support is absolutely vital.